Hello there everybody, welcome back to another episode of Try New Things. So glad you took the time to join us once again, where today we're down at the TNT Gardens. And the reason we're down here is to get a snapshot of what it looks like at the end of June. You won't see this video until the end of harvest season and I get a complete tally of how we made out. But just wanted to give you a look at what it looks like right now because I'm about ready to harvest a bunch of vegetables. So first of all, in between all these weeds in these first two rows are our potatoes. And the vast majority of these are Yukon Gold and they are ready to harvest. I did dig up about 15 feet by hand down there at the end about a week and a half ago. But I intend to use the tractor to make this job a little bit easier. Now in this row, the third row, again amongst all the grass, are my onions and they're ready to be harvested. I picked about 40% of those already. And beyond those you can see a clear spot. That was more potatoes. Here is where we had our peas, about half a row, and that bunch of peas has yielded me about a half gallon of shelled peas. Beside that I have my carrots that are coming finally, but not ready to pick. And I've been having some challenges with peppers. They really haven't been grown as good as I thought they would be, but we're right in the season that peppers really enjoy the hot weather, and so they're coming. I did lose a few, so you can see in between, just last week I planted some new seedlings that I started in the greenhouse. But no peppers picked as of yet. And then we've got our tomatoes. Not sure if they're going to come through on here, but there's a number of ripe tomatoes I need to pick. So let's go to the other side of the tomatoes and see what we got over there. And that rain has sure gotten all the grass that's in here growing just as good as the plants. But starting this last row, we've got our sweet potatoes. In the background, the tomatoes. Sweet potatoes are starting to look pretty good. Again, they love the hot weather. Here we've got what was supposed to be mango melons, but I'm not positive they are mango melons. We'll have to wait and see what we actually end up with here. Then we get down here into our watermelons, which I should say singularly, because I only have one real watermelon coming, other than a tiny one about the size of a quarter over there. And then we've got our butternut squash that's starting, and woven in here is a spaghetti squash. You can see a spaghetti squash in there, and they're coming along really, really good. So we'll keep on moving over to the raised garden bed section. Here I have bunching onions that are growing nicely, some new rhubarb we just planted. Here and here was garlic, but nothing ever came up, so I've transplanted some rosemary, at least in the smaller one. And then we've got blueberries, 2 tubs of strawberries, and our cucumbers. Now when I built this trellis, I envisioned the cucumbers climbing all the way up and I'd be picking hanging cucumbers. Well, they're getting there. They're about 4.5 feet up of my trellis so far on both sides. So they're starting to climb up, but I do have some cucumbers I got to pick as well. We planted 2 types. One kind of an English cucumber, which you can see here in this photo. And then just kind of like a regular cucumber, but doesn't grow real big. I've been picking them once they reach about 5 inches, which this one here is ready to pick. So we've got a bunch of those to pick today as well. And then lastly, down in the lower garden, we've got zucchini and more spaghetti squash. I can see some giant zucchinis because I haven't been out here in a couple days. And some spaghetti squash. And behind that, we have planted some popcorn. It's actually blue popcorn. And I'll do a video on the blue popcorn and release that later this year as well. And in there, we also planted pumpkins. Let me see if I can find a pumpkin growing. There we go. So there's a pumpkin. Down there's a pumpkin. So there, it's coming along pretty good. My corn survived the heat, at least for now. Well, we didn't get to pick everything because the potatoes and onions will harvest this weekend. But I did pick a few veggies. Let me show you what I grabbed. So there's a colander full of tomatoes and a bowl full of cucumbers. Now, when I pick these vegetables, every time I pick them, I weigh them. So I'm keeping a tally of everything we've grown, how much we've grown. Part of the reason is I want to know what we need to plant more of or less of next year. This is our first year with the raised garden bed section. And this is our first year with the upper garden. Now my goal is to grow my weight in veggies. We may get there with the potatoes, but you'll have to stay tuned to find out how everything turned out by the end of the season. So it's the middle of July and it's been very, very hot, but the garden's still doing fairly well. Down here our squash are doing great. Tomatoes are still cranking. Where we used to have the potatoes that we picked up the last clip and the onions, I've gone ahead and replaced those with beans and beets and peas. The beans are coming along pretty good. But so are my weeds. So I got to go through this and pick everything that's not a beet. And similarly over here, anything that's not a pea. And then down at the other end, my peppers are really starting to come on. Let me show you. And this here, on my way down to the peppers, is Anamame. So it's the first time planting that, and that seems to be doing pretty good. Here are some of those peppers I was talking about. Let me just show you this bell pepper here. Compared to the size of my hand, that is one massive pepper. So they're all coming along pretty good. I don't have near as many hot peppers as I'd like. So I've started some new ones in the greenhouse. I've started some a few weeks ago and planted them here. I think I planted 6. And 4 of them lived and 2 of them didn't. So I want to plant a bunch more. And then again, the tomatoes are still prolific, especially those cherry tomatoes. I'm going to assume that under those weeds and the very healthy looking vines, sweet potatoes are coming along really well as well. If I go to the raised garden bed section, our cucumbers still kicking. Didn't quite climb the trellis as high as I had envisioned. I don't know, I might try tomatoes next year here, or I just may plant some grapes, have this as a permanent grape growing spot. I've already harvested the bunching onions once and they're growing back. I've harvested the rhubarb and it's growing back. My strawberries are waiting for the right time to blossom once again, but they're looking pretty healthy. And we've got a fair amount of blueberries from these for our first year. Can't complain. Garlic didn't grow, so I put in some rosemary. So down here in the lower garden, we've pretty much got spaghetti squash. See if I can find one for you. There's one growing. And I think zucchini are coming to the end of life, but that's fine with me. We've gotten over 50 pounds, I think, of zucchini already. And then down where we planted the popcorn and the pumpkins, I've got popcorn growing. See there, a little tiny corn started. And there's some more. And then amongst all that, we've got some pumpkins. So here's an example of a pumpkin coming. You can see pumpkins just starting to turn orange there. I've got a couple orange ones already, but I'm going to leave them a bit longer. I planted multiple types. This one looks more like a gourd than a pumpkin, but it's starting to ripen up. And down here's another pumpkin that's a little further along with getting orange. But anyway, thought I'd give you a mid-July update on how the garden is doing. We'll check back in with you a little bit later. I also decided I might as well go ahead and pick my carrots while I'm at it today. But anyway, in the next clip it'll be a little further along in the season. It is now the end of July, and I'm going to give you a quick garden update. Just got done picking some variety of butternut squash. There's still a lot more coming, but let me show you how the garden's doing right now. So there's those butternut squash. A lot smaller than I thought they would be, but we tried one out yesterday and these are prime and ready to go. I do have some more still ripening. There's some there, some more in there, and then we've got some spaghetti squash, which we've picked 2 spaghetti squash. That one's almost ready to pick. And if I go into the main garden, this row is where I had picked all the carrots. I just got done transplanting some pepper seedlings. So hopefully those have a chance to mature, start growing some peppers. Replanted about 1.5 rows of peas, and they're starting to come up. I've got to weed again because the weeds grow faster than my vegetables out here. But you can see my pea plants are coming along nice. Over in this row, we've got some beets popping through. That's where we used to have the potatoes. And then the green beans. Got 1.5 rows of green beans coming. Again, that's where the potatoes were. Down here are more pepper transplants. Some of them I just did yesterday. And when you get down here, these are ones I transplanted a couple weeks ago. So they're starting to come along well. But there are my peppers that have been planted for a few months now. Just got green peppers so far. As far as the bell peppers go, that one's starting to turn red. That's a massive one. This one's got some smaller ones. Ooh, that one's turning red quite nicely on the top. And then down at the far end, down here you can see my chili peppers are coming. And it's time to pick a few chilies. I've got 3 of those plants. Now tomatoes are still going like crazy. I've got way too many tomatoes. Next year we're not planting near as many. They're doing extremely well, even given the little bit of a drought we just had. But yeah, way too many tomatoes. But we'll pick some more of those today and make something of them tonight. Down at the cucumber trellis, the cucumbers have almost made it to the top. You can see there's an English cucumber growing right there. On the inside, let me go on the inside and show you. So yeah, there's that English cucumber on the inside. Another one growing on the other side. I picked a bunch yesterday, so there's not a whole bunch left here. Strawberries, again, that far strawberry bed never blossomed this year at all. I don't know what's going on. This one was May. Picked a bunch of strawberries, but those ones are supposed to be June strawberries, and here it is the end of July and I haven't got a blossom. Again, the blueberry season's over. A rosemary's starting to grow. Harvested some rhubarb, it's coming back. And these bunching onions are coming on with a vengeance after I cut them all down. And then of course the sweet potatoes, we're assuming, are growing well under there somewhere. We get down to the lower garden. Right in the center of frame you can see another spaghetti squash coming. Here are some pumpkin actually. The nearest pumpkin plant's probably 30 feet away. And in this mess of weeds, for the most part, is spaghetti squash and zucchini. But I think we're reaching the end of zucchini season. Hopefully, because we got a ton of zucchini. Now my corn, my popcorn, not growing as tall as the regular corn I had last year. And I'm not certain why. But it's still coming along. You can see there, got some popcorns coming. But that's about it, besides the pumpkins that I showed you in the last clip. Oh, there's a good one. They're growing really well. My pumpkins are doing fantastic. Well, that's going to do it for this July update. We'll see you again in the next clip a little later on in the season. Well, we're back down here by the garden today. The reason is we're going to try picking our popcorn. The plants have pretty much dried out. The cobs are drying on the plants. I took a sneak peek and I was surprised by what I saw. But you wait, you'll see what I mean. Just got done picking the popcorn, and honestly, the popcorn haul this year couldn't have been more disappointing. There's definitely evidence I lost some to birds, I lost a bunch to bugs, but even the ones I managed to keep, I can't believe how minute my corn cobs turned out to be. Look how tiny these things are. All I got was one little bucket. Let me open one up and see how it looks on the inside. I don't think it's turned out well enough for me to make popcorn this season. But there's a little cob of popcorn. The purple little kernels are pretty. So it's early morning here on an early August day, and I wanted to give you an update on the garden in general. But I'm going to start with the cucumber trellis because the cucumbers have actually made it to the top. Let me show you. So I still have cucumbers growing around the bottom. There's a nice English cucumber growing there. But as I come up the trellis, look at that beautiful one there. Perfect. Some more cucumbers on this side. And then you can see the cucumbers have made it to the top. And they are actually hanging from the trellis. So I'm pretty excited about that. Cucumber's doing pretty good this year. I'm quite pleased. The beans we planted a couple weeks ago are all in bloom. So I'll be picking, oh, I see a bean already. I'll be picking green beans like crazy here in a bit. And then my pepper plants, still doing really well. These are the ones I just planted a couple weeks ago. They're starting to come along. And my peas are actually starting to blossom as well. So I should have a second crop of peas here in a couple weeks. Beets don't look great. I'll be honest. We'll see how they turn out at the end of the day. I actually came back and planted in between where none were growing and still not doing all that good. Maybe it's the time of year, but it looks like something's chewing on the beet greens, and I don't know what it is because I don't know how they can get in here or not. And they're not really tearing much else up unless it's bugs. Another lesson learned, plant my pumpkins later than I did this year because, again, it's the end of August and I had to pick the majority of my pumpkins. Some of them were starting to rot and all the plants were dead anyway, so I picked the pumpkins. I guess we'll cut them up for pumpkin pies and muffins, but we're not going to have any left over for Halloween. And then some spaghetti squash and some regular squash, but a good day's haul there. So it's Labor Day weekend, the 1st of September, and it hasn't rained for 3 weeks. How is the garden doing? The answer, I guess, all things considered, is okay. So the plants are showing some signs of stress from the heat and the drought, but I try to get out here every other day to water the garden. So the beans, we got a really good harvest of beans yesterday. The beets that are left are actually doing pretty good. Peas, some patches of success there, but other patches were not so good. But we are starting to get a few peas. If there's one plant that loves the heat, it's been the peppers. So here's the original pepper plants. Got some ripe chilies to pick. These are the bell peppers along there. And the most recently planted peppers are starting to bloom. Tomatoes are still producing tomatoes, but the plants don't look all that good. We may be in the final throes of tomato season. I did dig up one bit of sweet potatoes just to see if they were growing, and they were looking really good. I know you can't see them for the weeds, but they're in there, and I'm hoping we're going to have a good crop of sweet potatoes. Over at the raised garden, we're still producing cucumbers. And look at that right at the top. English cucumbers hanging to be picked. I'll have to pick some more today. I harvested a bunch of onions a week ago, and they're already coming back. A couple leaves on the rhubarb, not so good. Rosemary's coming along great. Blueberries good. Strawberries surviving, but no strawberries. And then down here, zucchini and squash season is done. Pumpkin season is done. And our dismal crop of popcorn. So today what I want to do is till this back up. I've cleaned out most of the stalks and weeds. Gonna till it up. I don't know if it's too late to plant another crop, being the 1st of September, but we're gonna try planting some cooler weather vegetables. So the lower garden is all tilled up. You're probably not going to tell from here, but I stole some topsoil from the bottom of the garden and put it on the top. And my hope is it comes in a little better here. But there's where I stole a little bit of topsoil and I put it at the top of the garden, at the top of the hill. Essentially what I'm trying to do is terrace this lower garden somewhat. So I'm going to have a garden to about here, and then a slope, and then garden, and then slope, and then lawn. And to finish that up, I've got a couple loads of topsoil coming later this weekend, and then I'll put that back down here where I've taken it off, and then grade it appropriately and till it accordingly is my plan. Not sure it's going to work yet, but the first terrace is built. Yesterday was a good day because we got a tiny bit of rain. Not a lot of rain, but a little bit, and that's the first time we've seen rain in 4 weeks here on the farm. So it's very much welcome, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I checked my rainwater harvesting barrels. Normally it can hold, between the one at the greenhouse and the 3 at the farm, 1,300 gallons. And on Thursday, so just a few days ago, I used the last of all of that capacity and drained all the tanks. And I checked this morning, the rain from yesterday, I may have 100 gallons back. And there's no rain in the forecast for the rest of the week. So the last time I was out here, I think I was terracing this top part of the bottom garden. And here where you see some new green grass growing, that was the slope. So I tried to level it off, slope. And down here is where I stole the topsoil for the top. But I've since brought in a load of topsoil and got it spread out. So I haven't planted anything down here at the bottom yet, but I have been watering this bit, and I'm not sure if anything's come up, but it's mostly beets, some lettuce, and some cilantro is what I planted up here. So we'll see if that comes through in time to turn in anything before the end of the year. But otherwise, I'm ready for next season down here at the bottom garden. Not much to say about the raised garden bed area that's different from the last update, although my cucumbers are starting to cash it in, I think. We'll get a few more cucumbers, and then that'll be it for this season. The sweet potatoes have been really good. I've only dug up that much so far. And I've still got probably 40 feet of sweet potatoes to go. The tomatoes, we're sick of tomatoes because I planted way too many, and they're just not producing as much anymore. So my plan today is to take out those tomato plants actually. But the peppers are still doing really good. They didn't mind the heat and the drought as much as everything else, but my beans certainly did. We'll be able to pick a few more beans off them today, but they're still alive, still producing. But them and the peas really suffered in the heat and drought. There's some of the peas hanging in there. And then the last thing we've got still growing is our beets. And I've actually got enough large beets there that I could probably make a jar of beets. Hopefully the ones at the lower garden will come through, but if not, we got a little bit of beets this year. But yeah, that's it for today. We're going to hurry up and get to the work before it gets too hot. But what we're doing is taking out all those weedy tomato plants right there. So we worked away at it and we got all the tomatoes out. I even went down through between the peppers and the sweet potatoes where the tomatoes were and gave it a little till. But that's going to be it for this update. We'll see you at the end of the month. Well, I was a little bit off center when I did my my first pass there, but exposed an awful lot of sweet potatoes. I can see I did get a couple casualties with the ground as hard as it was, but not too bad. We're going to go ahead and pick those up, and then I may make another pass. Well, here's a look at our 2024 sweet potato harvest. I can guarantee you in 2025 we're definitely going to be planting a lot more. So here we are, it's now the beginning of November and what is going to be the last installment in this particular video. So for the majority of this video, I've been sharing with you throughout the summer how our second full year of a garden here at TNT has turned out. But overall, our progress is pretty much done here this year. So what I want to do at this point is share with you the year we've had, give you a list of everything we grew, how much we grew. Before I do that, a couple lessons learned, which was really great going through this experience. So for one thing, we planted way too many tomatoes. So no tomatoes not as many tomatoes next year, and we're going to try growing paste tomatoes, because at the end of the day, most of the things we ended up canning with the tomatoes would have been better if we had to use paste tomatoes. But too many tomatoes, great harvest of cucumbers, you'll see that in a second. I want to plant more onions next year. We pretty much went through all of our onions already, and it's, you know, only the beginning of November. So more onions next year, but yeah, we'll try a couple new things next year as well, so stay tuned for next season. But right now what I'm going to do is put up on the screen just how we did this year in general. So as you can see on the screen is a rundown of our total harvest numbers from the gardens in 2024, from least based on weight to most. The first being bunching onions and chives with a ½ pound. Rhubarb, first year with the rhubarb, it'll continue to grow and expand. We got a ½ pound of rhubarb. Popcorn, complete video on our growing of our popcorn this year. Kind of disappointing, ¾ pound, but in the end it was very tasty and worked quite well. Edamame, just a test, we got just under a pound. We're going to grow more edamame next year. It worked out really well. What little bit we did plant. Watermelon, complete failure for us. Don't know if I'm going to try again next year or not. Carrots, 2½ pounds of carrots. We're going to plant more of that in 2025. 2½ pounds of peas. Again, we'll want more peas next year. Cayenne peppers, 3 pounds. Turns out to be enough to make our pepper flakes that we enjoy throughout the year. Red potatoes, 8 pounds. We're going to elect not to replant red potatoes next year in favor of more Yukon Gold, which we'll get to in a bit. Bell peppers, 10 pounds. Russet potatoes, 12 pounds. Onions, 15½ pounds. Hopefully we'll plant at least twice that much next year. Butternut squash, 18 pounds. Cantaloupe, 24 pounds. That was a surprise. Cantaloupe did really well. Green beans, almost 25 pounds of green beans. Sweet potatoes, 26 pounds. They turned out really, really good. We're going to have to plant double next year. Spaghetti squash, 37 pounds, more than we needed. Pumpkins, 50 pounds. The reason I say more is I'm going to plant them a little bit later, and hopefully they'll be available for around Halloween time. Yukon Gold potatoes, 55 pounds. That's the only kind I'm going to plant next year. They seem to last longer in storage for us. Zucchini, way too much at 56 pounds. Cucumbers, 61 pounds. You would think that would be a lot of cucumbers, but we like our cucumbers. Made a lot of pickles too. Tomatoes, 85 pounds. Way too many tomatoes. We did a lot of canning, so less tomatoes next year, but also plant some that are better for sauces and paste. Now we did get some fruit as well. Elderberry, first year getting any elderberry. 0.1 pounds, hoping for a bigger harvest next year. Blueberries, sad, but again, new plants, 0.3 pounds. Strawberries did terrible. They should have done much better than 2½ pounds, so hopefully next year will be a lot better. And then blackberries, nearly 30 pounds, which was really good. More than enough blackberries, but I want to plant more because I think I can sell those. But anyway, in total, in the garden, nearly 500 pounds of vegetables against the 250-pound target that I had set for myself at the beginning of the year.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for another long episode of Try New Things. I apologize for the length of the video, but if you're still hanging in there, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask them. And until the next one, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.